Okay, just wanted to give you an update on the piano today. So, what a gorgeous old instrument, and it is doing really well for its age. I wrote down the serial number. I don't have my piano atlas on me. Based on the cabinet work, I'd put it in the 1900 somethings, maybe as late in the 19 teens. But I did write down the serial number, so I'll be able to let you know. Interesting little emblem here on the rest plank. This is made for Bailey's Music Rooms in Burlington, Vermont. That is so cool. So, this old piano is probably holding 16 tons of pressure. It's built in an era where every instrument is hand built and the quality of wood stock is unsurpassed. And the pianos are not computer designed. A modern piano is designed by a computer with kind of the objective of how little wood do I need to put in this, how much plastic can I get away with. Whereas these old pianos were overbuilt. What won't break? What will sound good? With an abundance of local available stock. So the reason this piano is doing so well at its age, it was built in Boston out of wood from the area. So everything about this piano is used to New England winters. The biggest trouble spot on your piano is this tuning pin that I've marked with chalk. I'm going to remark that because it's faded a bit from tuning. That tuning pin has insufficient tension, and that's easy to address, but I want to talk about its causes. Flying blind here on the camera, I have no idea if I'm in frame. So the pin block, we see about an inch of the tuning pin. That's what I'm moving. It has the wire coiled around it. That's what I'm moving to tune the piano. And there's another 2 inches that we don't see within the pin block. And the pin block is made of rock maple, multiple layers of rock maple. If you had this beautiful old growth piece of maple and you started drilling holes in it and hammering pins, it would just crack along the grain. So there's multiple layers so that as the piano ages and the wood stresses from having all these pins jammed in, that if one layer starts to fatigue, there's multiple other layers to hold that tuning pin. So enough of the layers have fatigued for that particular pin in that area of the pin block that note is tender. It was by far the most out of tune. We did not tune all the way up to A440. That's concert pitch for today, but at the time when this piano was built, it would have been a lot more subjective and a lot more hyper local as far as what qualifies as A or C. Pitch changes depending on barometric pressure. So my tuning fork here is different than my tuning fork in Montpelier based on altitude. So I chose to float the piano where it was, which was at 437, touching on 438. Significant. If you're going to try to play with another instrument, they'll have to detune to you. But really the right move here, because going all the way up to A440 would really stress these components out. And there's a bunch of wires in the low end that gave me the borderline I'm going to break sensation, which we definitely don't want. The bass section was the most out of tune as far as tension is concerned. Everything else was out of tune, but at tension. The soundboard of the piano is a crown on every piano. On a grand, it's like an arched ceiling. On an upright, it's like a belly pushing out. And when the piano goes really out of tune, the down-bearing force of the wires is insufficient, and the crown sits at an exaggerated posture. So this was only happening in the low end, where the down-bearing shift was sufficient enough that it's floating around on me after I do that. Normal, normal, normal. And I don't expect it to settle adversely, with the exception of that note that has the insufficient tension. I wouldn't be surprised if that one goes earlier than the rest. We have one jack that has unglued from its whippen. The touch response mechanism of the piano is essentially a miniature catapult. You're shooting the hammer at the string and catching and reloading it. If you're not out of the way, the string has no room to ring. State-of-the-art miniaturization when the piano was invented. It's a tiny catapult. The firing pin of the catapult is called a jack, and it's like an L shape. And we push down on the key, the jack raises up, rotating the hammer toward the string. At some point, the toe of the jack is tripped, the hammer is thrown and rebounds. This mechanism is called the whippen, and the hammer assembly is above it. The jack of this one note, which I'll show you in a second, has come unglued from its block. So I took still pictures of this as well, but I'll show you on the video. There's a chance that we can reglue that in place. We would not use an epoxy because if it got anywhere than what we wanted, it would cause real binding. But we could probably use a normal wood glue on that if the piano is cooperative, letting us move some tools around to get that fixed back in place. If we try that and it doesn't work, then we take the whole action out, take that whipping out and glue it by hand in front of us where we're sure everything is fitting correctly. There's minimal risk of taking the action out and components fatiguing on us. But what we want to avoid for an old piano is breaking two parts to try to fix one. And I don't get that vibe from this piano. The piano was super cooperative and wanted to be tuned today, but it is part of the equation. So I'm just going to show you the lighting's not great. So going sideways on you here. You can see that is the post that's unglued versus the post that's glued. Let me point to it so you get a better idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the jack. I'm wiggling the toe of the jack. That's the jack. That's the firing pin of our miniature catapult. This is the post. I'm blocking the light. That's the post. That's the unglued post. So maybe I can make that a little more obvious on the still pictures. Regluing that would be really nice. Other things we can do for the piano is clean the instrument. This is a really nice way of bribing the piano to behave. I've certainly seen worse, but there's a lot of dust in here, and getting that out of there kind of bribes the piano to behave. The name of the glue is CA glue, the letter C, the letter A glue, cyanoacrylate adhesive. You can get a bottle for, I don't know, $12 on Amazon or at a hobby shop. It's a type of super glue. You don't want any other type. You want this type. I use super thin, which I would recommend. And it activates by moisture. So the process is that you would use a slightly damp paper towel to wet the wood surface, allow the pores to open, put a tiny bit of the glue on, and then hold the ivory on for 10 seconds. You can glue your hands pretty easily. The other thing is that the ivories are all uniquely shaped. So they may look the same, but they're not. The carve out to fit the tail on this E note will be different than the carve out to fit the tail on the D, on the G, on the A. So you really want to dry fit them all. I am available to re-glue these for you. My preference would be that I do it, but I understand if you want to do it yourself. But it would couple nicely. Doing the ivories would work nicely with doing the jack because we could give things a little time to dry and see if it's set well while we do this other gluing work. It would also couple nicely with cleaning the piano. Other than that, less is more. I would just kind of keep doing what you're doing for the piano. The tuning is stressful for it. So whatever you're doing is working. The other thing you can do, the old wives' tale for keeping the piano in tune in the winter, is to put a mason jar within the piano. This piece of wood is called the front door, and it is held in place by a friction spring. Let me find it here. Can't see it very well. Let's see if I'm on frame or not. No idea. There's a friction spring that pushes up, and the door will lean out. And then in all that free real estate in there, you can put a mason jar, and it will evaporate water into the piano. Only doing that in the winter, and keeping an eye on it maybe once a week to make sure it's full. I don't even think it's that imperative. Whatever you're doing is working. The piano was astoundingly close to pitch based on the amount of time it's gone between tunings. Call me if you have any questions or concerns.